Views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium. Good evening. I was about to say good afternoon, but good evening. You are tuned in to BTR News. My name is Scotty Reid. I'm broadcasting from behind these enemy lines that I call USA Inc. Today's date is January 14th, 2017. On this Saturday night on our new broadcast time, I was about to say good afternoon because we usually come on at 4 o'clock p.m. 4 days a week, but because I'm trying to do some things behind the scene to help others launch into owning their own media, owning their own black media, and producing more of it because we need it. We need those independent voices out there. So I had to cut it down to a weekly 3-hour program, but I thank you all for joining me tonight. So let's get started. Sorry about the late start. I had an issue with the YouTube live stream. Shout out to those who are watching from YouTube live. Thank you for being patient. To those tuned in to I would have to say, and I can accurately say this, the world's #1 independent digital black radio station. That would be Black Talk Radio Network. As we have a global audience, just want to give y'all a shout out, and to all the others on the different social media platforms that we just try to get the messages of independent black voices out there on the issues, like Dave would say, that impacts us all. And that's Dave Otando Radio Show. Shout out to Dave if you're listening. So I do have some things that I actually want to talk about carrying over from conversations had on Black Talk Radio Network this week on various programs, because that's basically the only network that I listen to. And that's because, of course, I'm engineering a lot of the programs, but it's independent producers on there as well, and I try to listen to them, when I'm not producing or working on other people's media, some of our clients. The late start, I just kind of running late on some things, but we're started now. But some of those things that I heard this week on Black Radio, obviously John Lewis on Trump, he has some comments to say about Donald Trump being illegitimate. Same thing that right-wingers and those who don't believe Barack Obama was born in Hawaii and believed that his birth certificate was a fraud, and he really wasn't a citizen of the United States, even though there's no debate about whether or not his mother was a citizen. By default, he has citizenship. So, that's just a moot point. But now John Lewis is turning around using fake news to say that Donald Trump is illegitimate president. So got some things to say about that. Some people have been talking about Steve Harvey meeting with Donald Trump this week. First, we heard, Kanye West had met with him. Now we have Steve Harvey, another celebrity, meeting with him. And, of course, people have something to say, and they should have, an opinion about these things, and they should express those, is what I really meant to say, is they have a right to express. Doesn't mean they're right, doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about, doesn't mean that it's being constructive, but people have independent views, and they should express those because it leads to dialogue. It's not always about 100% agreement, but I look at the pros and cons of it, and we can talk about that. We'll get into the details about that later. Another conversation that was had, this actually started on Tando Radio Show, which I engineer for Dave from LA, as the listeners of Tando Radio Show knows him. And so a question was asked by one of the regular listeners of the network. And he asked the question, can black men counter racism by getting white women pregnant? I'm paraphrasing his question, but that is the gist of his question. And so I said, let's further that conversation Saturday night, because we were running out of time on Tando. But, it's an interesting concept. It's something that I have briefly mentioned, maybe did one, maybe twice mentioned it on air, because people get passionate, people get emotional when you start talking about interracial dating and things like that. And people have their individual perspectives and their views, which has been shaped by whatever programming they're running or whatever programming they have been susceptible to. But we can't have quite logical discussion about the pros and cons of that. There are clearly two different camps on this issue. But it's an interesting question the way that he put it, and I think it's worthy of further delving into. So can black men counter racism by getting white women pregnant? So we'll talk about that after we get through with sharing some of the network news. I do have some network news for you, as I am the primary manager of the platform, Black Talk Radio Network, pretty much in charge. Have some volunteers, but pretty much overseeing everything in terms of our media operations, which in 2016, our digital radio station, in addition to our social networking activities, we reached about 8 million people. That's about a rough estimate. And I would say at least over 156 different countries. One of our volunteers, Miss Melissa Noel, shout out to her. I was wrong, in the email when I said I don't think the individual host, or any of our clients will be interested in that kind of detailed reports. And you're in a volunteer position, and I don't want you putting in all this time to produce these reports that are just wonderful reports, detailed information, drilling down in the statistical information for the podcast download specifically. And so I have gotten some feedback on that 2016 end of year podcast report, and it's been nothing but positive. One of the hosts said that when they go to people go to ask them questions about advertisement.
No found.
Okay, give me just a moment there. 916, we haven't opened up the lines yet, so I will open up the lines. I'll announce that. So please stay muted. And then when we do open up the lines, let's kind of watch our background noise. But thank you for joining us tonight. You will have an opportunity, I promise you, to chime in on whatever topic we're discussing in the next 3 hours. What was I saying? I was talking about some of the network news. And so one of the hosts said that information was helpful. So when she goes to present her program to potential advertisers or sponsors, and they ask her, if they're smart, they're going to ask her, well, what kind of numbers are you getting? Who's listening to your radio station when it's on air live? Who's downloading your podcast? Where are those podcasts being downloaded? What states? All that kind of information. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. And that's from Sister Cece. She sent me an email. I think she even mentioned it today on the question and answer webinar that the nonprofit Black Talk Media Project is now conducting every Saturday. She participated in that. So let me just transition to that news this morning, or I should say, this afternoon, I should say. Every Saturday from 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern, the Black Talk Media Project, which manages the Black Talk Radio Network and has assisted all the independent media producers that you hear on that platform. And some of the websites you come across, you may not know that the Black Talk Media Project assisted them with their technical questions, consultations. All of that was done free because we're a nonprofit. We take donations, and we are a new media education. But we do provide services, but that's not a requirement for you to learn. So this year in 2017, towards educating primarily Black people, but the classes are open to the public, but primarily towards educating Black people on new media technology, because we've heard for years and years, for as long as I've been engaged in creating and maintaining independent Black media platform. That's been for the past 8 years. Since I've been involved in it, people have still been complaining, saying we need this, we need that, we need our own this, we need to be in control of our images, we need to be in control of the conversations that's being had on these radio stations, and we're just simply not in control. And a lot of people don't know that you can take control of your media. No, you're not looking to compete with NBC, ABC, MSNBC, but you are looking to compete with whatever your local radio station is, whatever your local television station is, because not only can we help you get into digital radio streaming, podcasting, but video streaming, and those type of services, or recommending how you can take advantage of the free services. But it's all about getting your message out there. And that's what we aim to do. That has always been our original mission. And I have to say we've been successful, but we need more. We need more localized media. So every Saturday from 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, free classes. We call it a question and answer webinar. It's not a presentation. You won't come in and see any fancy graphics or anything like that and telling you about this or telling you about that. I am there for those 2 hours every Saturday to answer your questions on digital new media is what I call it. What falls under new media? Digital radio streams, which are really digital radio stations. WordPress, I specialize in WordPress content management systems. I know a lot about those, as well as video streaming and the different software that's out there if you want to put forth a professional looking broadcast with the graphics and everything. So that's what I'm there for, to answer those type of questions. I got 30 years of internet as a webmaster experience. And 8 years in digital radio broadcasting as well as podcasting. So we had another successful class, and how do I determine whether or not it was successful? Well, like today, for an hour and a half, we had a steady stream of questions coming from about 6. We had about 9 people who tuned in to the webinar, but maybe about 3 or 4 of them had questions, and they had questions that they didn't even think they had, but one question and an answer led to another question. And so we did that for an hour and a half. The last 30 minutes, I was just playing music because nobody else had any questions. But I'm there for those 2 hours to help you, primarily Black people, but again, it's open to the public. We are North Carolina registered nonprofit, but we are there to teach those classes and to show you that it does not cost, like the Geico commercial, doesn't cost a lot of money to have car insurance. It does not cost a whole lot of money to become the masters of your media. And so we want to encourage people, and it was great to have one of our new clients who just launched her platform. She's still working on it, but we've installed it for her. But she's working on localizing her media to her local community. Again, not trying to compete with MSNBC or none of these big corporate platforms, but trying to compete with the local media. Some of those local media are backed by the big corporations, but guess what? That should be no hindrance. That's where your marketing comes in. That's where your social media marketing comes in, and your on-the-ground community outreach to let people know about your radio station. That's on your radio platform, where you have a team of people, if you want to grow it and make it a collaboration, and a team of people that's producing local news and giving local Black views. So it was great. Yeah, I'm just so excited as more people take advantage of that and think in those terms of not trying to be some national, personality, a news talk personality or commentator or whatnot, but really serving your local community, because that leads to what? That leads to organizing. That is how you use what Malcolm X deemed to be the most powerful entity on the face of the planet, the media. That is how you use it to organize on a localized level by providing local content. So I'm just so excited. Every Saturday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we had those classes. It is a webinar where you can share your computer screen with me as we're looking at different software, and you may be having some problems. Something isn't working, like Scotty is not working right, like y'all saw in the video you made, so we can straighten it out, find out what the problem is, or I can share my screen with you and show you how the Black Talk Media Project can save you a whole lot of money on being the independent media that you want to see. All right, so that's all of the network news. Let me keep a track of the time. No, I do have one other subject that I want to cover on the network news. So we're like, we run a media operation. We have a outreach. We manage several social media platforms on all the major networks, as well as maintain our own home base of operations, because again, if you don't own the platform, if you're not in charge of it, they can shut you down at any moment. So why complain? Why whine? Take your little 3-day Facebook jail, whatever, and then, still be streaming on your other multiple platforms, and of course your own home base platform. So, but anyway, I do read the comments. People do submit notes and stuff, or I should say emails to us, and some of our independent media producers, as well as myself, I think last week I talked about the topic of last week's program. I talked about the legacy of Barack Obama. I'm going to tell you who also covered that. Scotty Reid, who independent black media producer on the Black Talk Radio Network, as well as CobrasInAction.org. But his last podcast, he was focusing on the legacy of President Obama. He pulled an article off of one of these news sites, and it listed 50 accomplishments of President Obama. So he read down the list of 50 things that this particular news outlet said that Obama, this was a major thing that he did, or an accomplishment, or what you will. And based on RG's analysis on the barbershop, he only found one, and that would be signing the legislation that is supposed to have given the black farmers their reparations, for lack of a better word, but they had sued the U.S. government for practicing racism and discrimination through, what's that agency, the Agriculture Department, and so that had been a long-running thing between black farmers and the U.S. government, and so it was supposed to have been settled under Barack Obama. I'm going to have to bring back one of those black farmer associations. We've had a couple of them on over the years covering that issue. And I don't think all of them have gotten their money, or Congress has not passed legislation funding that. Okay, so I could be wrong. I will reach out to someone and get an update on that. So look for news for that on blacktalkradionetwork.com through Black Talk Radio News. But that was the only accomplishment that Scotty Reid in his analysis came out to say, that you could specifically say this is something that President Obama did specifically for black people. It ain't about being the president of all Americans or whatever classification, but if you look at that list, he has done things that are specific either for corporations or either for voting blocks, like the American-Israeli voting bloc known as AIPAC. He has done plenty and delivered trillions of dollars. Maybe I'm overstating it. Somebody look it up. Over the 8 years, how much aid has been delivered to Israel, which is the number one welfare state in terms of getting U.S. tax dollars. He's done a lot for them. They have a lobby. They lobby for that. These are so-called American Israelis. They got dual citizenship, but they operate and they lobby the president and Congress for Israel. And then what? You got the LGBT community. They have a lobbyist group. He's done things specifically to address them. Let me see, corporations bailed out the banks along with that. They have lobbyists and what have you. So, but going over that list, we were talking, black people, if we're going to call ourselves a group, then all these groups have demands. And if you're not making no demands, then you shouldn't be participating in politics. You just shouldn't be doing it because that's what it's all about. It's about different groups, different interest groups, and they coming together collectively to put an agenda forward to whoever the CEO of USA Inc. is going to be. And then you lobby for those things, and then you measure that person that person's administration based off of how many of the agenda points for the black agenda did that administration meet. That's how you judge an administration. You don't judge it on emotions. Oh, they make me feel good and they look good and all this and that. You don't base it off of any of the shenanigans that Donald Trump, although I do like it when people keep it real and stay true to who they are. And I know it's a lot of black people out there. Y'all would agree that y'all wish that President Obama had talked to the mainstream media the way Donald Trump talking to him. When he called out CNN for reporting some false information, not verifying the report and feeding into this false narrative that the Russians somehow, interfered into the elections, and therefore, like John Lewis coming out and saying he's an illegitimate president. So, I mean, it is a lot of things that is going on, and a lot of people was caught up into celebrityhood, and they're caught up into my team versus their team. And the Democrats and the Republicans do not represent the interests of black people. They just simply do not do it. And so when John Lewis says something like that, he's placing himself in a position to where he can't even negotiate with a Trump administration on any black issue. So that's just juvenile. That's ignorance. We ain't high school football teams and whatever. But again, he is a black Democrat. So he don't represent black people because most black people, like all people in the United States, do not participate in the voting process. Whether there's a pro or con to that, I don't care. But I'm saying the ones that's participating, and then you showcase people like John Lewis, and he says these things, and we fall right in behind it. So so anyway, when we've produced this sort of content, just analyzing the Obama administration objectively, we're not going to come from it from the racist Fox News perspective or any of those right-wing sites. We know we know that a lot of the criticism is race-based, but we're not doing that. But then when you come at us like y'all came at Tavis Smiley, came at Mr. Cornel West, when all they was doing was advocating on the issue, placing a demand on a president, an incoming administration, that has nothing to do with his race, but to address an issue that a lot of black people are affected to when you talking about poverty. And what did a lot of black people do but go at them on some juvenile stuff and talking about they haters and whatnot? Well, we've been getting a couple of comments, not a lot of comments, but a couple of comments from people like that. And some of these people, I mean, one of them looked like an old grandmother. Like she, think my hair is gray. I mean, like, wow. So that could have been anybody's picture, but she called us haters simply because we produced a video questioning or analyzing the Obama administration, FCC appointee Tom Wheeler, in enforcing the obscenity laws on regulated terrestrial radio stations. As we always promote Clear the Airways channel, working out of the Chicago area, trying to get these killer radio stations to stop playing killer radio music, lyrics telling people to kill, to commit crimes, and then you have the spike in crime that you have in Chicago, that's the government, the federal government, not doing its job in trying to address the problem through a myriad of ways. So we're not saying if you take the killer radio programming off the air, there's going to be no crime. But guess what? I bet you there will be a correlation of crime levels dropping even further because you're not programming young people with this violent messages. You're not telling them to go out here and spike women's drinks and date rape them. And then so it's not to just really focus on the black showcase artist who's putting it out, although they spare some responsibility because they could say, yes, I'm going to put that out. What you want me to do, even though I know it's destructive music, but you're going to pay me, I'm going to put it out. Or I could say, no, I'm going to go independent and I'll slang my music independently utilizing the internet or whatnot. So these people do bear responsibility in using their free will and making the decisions that they make. But the people most responsible is the heads of these corporations, and mainly there are white males who are promoting this garbage on the airwaves. It is corporations like McDonald's that sponsor music, murder music on these terrestrial radio stations. And then there's the FCC, as I mentioned. And so if we talk about those sort of things, how are we being haters? When we're saying that if Michelle Obama, if she was so turned off and just couldn't believe the things that was coming out of CEO-elect Donald Trump's mouth, when on a hot mic he was describing sexual assault of women. Well, Michelle, come on now, Miss Obama. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but come on now, FLOTUS. Many of them artists that have been up in the White House have been hosted at White House events, and for his campaign, put out that type of music using that same vulgar language. So when we just pointing out facts, why do other black people want to say we Sambos or we coons or we the enemies? We're a news reporting organization. I speak for myself, though, but anything that I produce, I'm looking at it objectively. I'm not going to let racial classifications or skin color confuse me as to where the problems are coming from, and the problems are coming from many different directions, and there are many different people participating in the problem. So, again, we have to promote political maturity, but I don't even want to call it political maturity. It's just maturity, period. That you in your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s, and you so caught up in an icon, in a celebrity. Like we try to tell these children, don't be following behind Lil Wayne's in the Jay-Z's of the world and putting forth this sort of image. We want, so what's the difference? What is the difference? So, we need to take control of our images, but of those people who are putting out harmful images and messages to the minds of the masses in our community, because if you turn on radios, stations that are targeting white demographics, and yes, the radio industry is set up in racial classifications as well as different genres. Everybody know that mainly white people listen to country music. And country music, I don't know. Y'all tell me, in country music, are stars being nominated where they talking about they pulled out their 6-shooter and they shot Jeb down, in the street, or blew his face off or blew his head off? Are they getting those type of messages like killer radio stations are FCC regulated stations and being promoted by corporations that advertise on those stations, and those stations, while they're targeting black communities, most of those are white-owned stations, right? iHeartRadio, I know everybody want to try to jump on the brand name and stuff like that. Oh, I'm part of iHeartRadio and this and that. But look at the stuff the programming that they are targeting your community with. I don't want to be affiliated with iHeartRadio. That's why you will not find the digital radio station, Black Talk Radio, in their directory. You won't find it. Because I will not be a hypocrite. So I do need to take a station identification break. And guess what? We got some music for you. We got some new music. Last week I asked the independent artists who are putting out I don't think positive music is a proper label. It's just too narrow. But putting out real music, keeping it real. Which reminds me, let me go back because sometimes I get scatterbrained. Those people that saying Donald Trump, I heard this on mainstream media today. He's not acting presidential. Is that even a word? Does it even have a definition? If you went to the dictionary.com or whatever and put in presidential, what does that mean? But then Al Sharpton got a show called Keeping It Real Radio, so why y'all sweating Donald Trump for keeping it real on Twitter or keeping it real on Facebook or keeping it real in press conferences? Again, y'all, I mean, it was times that I wish Barack Obama had put the smack down on some of these racist reporters. Why you going on Fox News when these people sat up there and promoted for 8 years that you a foreign-born other and practicing racism, but yeah, he would go on there. No, they wouldn't have been welcome. They'd have been, quote unquote, blacklisted from my press conferences. I'm not taking any questions from Fox News affiliates. I would have did the same. Y'all wish Barack Obama would have talked to them plain and straight instead of being, what is the presidential? What does that even mean? You know, I'm gonna let you practice racism against me in a dignified manner, which is gonna lead us into our first story, which is John Lewis and him talking about Donald Trump. You know, that John Lewis, he in a dignified way took all them batons and kicks to the face and to the head and got many concussions and all that, and he wasn't doing it for no human rights. He wasn't doing it. He was doing it for voting rights. That's what he was doing it for. Okay? That's what he was doing it for. And so they make him, he's just really tainting his legacy. You know, but I don't think that's a legacy to brag on when, yes, John Lewis did say on Twitter. And so, again, you being hypocrites. You got John Lewis on Twitter talking about when them policemen used to whoop my behind, I used to say, thank you for your service. Check his Twitter record. So what do you mean Donald Trump can't use Twitter? See, this is the juvenile stuff that I'm talking about that black folks don't need to be getting caught up in. That is coming from the white racist programming. That's coming from the Democratic Party. That's coming from white media that's programming you to what you're going to be arguing with people about or talking about. Who cares about? I love that Donald Trump is on Twitter. That's a source of information. He can let me, they talking about he shouldn't be on there with no filter. And I can see from a security standpoint, he don't want to say this or say that. You know, but as a person who's trying to counter the system of racism, I love it when these people are not so codified. And then we can see what's coming and how we can counter it. So, but at the same time, President Obama was the first president to launch a Twitter account for a POTUS. So why y'all acting like all these people ain't on Twitter? See, that kind of stuff that make you look juvenile, that make it look like the white Democrats is in control of your mind by using these proxy racist tools, black Democrats like John Lewis. So, but we do have some new music. As I was saying, I'm going to go into a music break. Last week, I asked y'all to send us some new music, and we got some submissions from Mike Body, as well as, let me see if I can find the artist's name. I'm not going to play that clip yet, but this clip that's coming up we're going to run is Mike Body. Let me throw up this picture for you. And so we had some people send us in some music, and I like the music, some of it more so than others, and we just trying to help the independent artists who is trying to keep it real in their hip hop without promoting destructive anti-black messages just so they can cut a deal with, you know, the white corporate radio labels and what have you. We want to support them. And so these people have submitted their music to us. So CD Baby and all the others, please do not try to put in any copyright claims because this music was submitted to us. Therefore, we have the permission from the artist to share that music. So this track is called Call Me King. It's from Mike Body. Again, if you're an artist out there trying to get your music out there, you can send it to me at info@blacktalkmediaproject.org, info@blacktalkmediaproject.org. If we like it, we're going to put it on air. We do not charge people like some of these other services to air your music. We looking for music that has a message. If your music has that message that we're looking to get out to the masses, we will throw it on. So you listening to Black Talk Radio News. We're going to come back on the other side, open up in our first topic, open up the phone lines right here. Let me give out those numbers. Write them down if you don't have them posted where you're tuned in from. But the number is 866-510-9025. That's 866-510-9025. You will hit star to unmute yourself when we open up the lines. Watch background noise, but I will try to get to each and every one of you. We got, 2.5 more hours left in this weekly broadcast of BTR News.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. I'm understanding that we having some audio feed problems on the Facebook live stream. I'm trying to resolve that right now. I think I just did. So let's see here. Somebody let me know whether or not y'all can hear. I'm showing on my system that you should be able to hear. Everything else is registering properly, so I apologize if you weren't able to hear us through the Facebook live stream. You should be able to hear us now, hopefully, so you can let us know. Somebody can let us know there. All right, so moving on. I mentioned John Lewis, so let me get John Lewis up here. Let's bring him front and center. John Lewis. John Lewis going along with the Democratic strategy, and that is also at the direction of the Clinton campaign and all her surrogates and whatnot, have been on the same page pretty much with their messaging. And this messaging that they're trying to tell you is that Donald Trump only won the election because he had help from the Russians. And then we get all of these cryptic, messages where no real evidence, but cryptic messages about the CIA said this or the intelligence services said that. One of our clients and media partners, Elliot, was telling me, because he runs a barber shop, and he was saying, man, that's all black folks is coming in, talking about the Russians stole the election and all this. And I said, Elliot, who they listening to. They listen to the ABC networks, the alphabet networks, and that is the talking point that is being sent out to the Democratic-friendly media, to all those people. So that they're just repeating what they've heard. So John Lewis, in trying to I don't know what he's trying to do really, because what do they think they're going to do? They're not going to have new elections. You can't do that. That's not going to happen. So why are you coming out talking about Donald Trump is an illegitimate president? Illegitimate how? How's he an illegitimate president? He was elected. He won the delegates that he needed. None of these states are saying that their elections was hacked or there was so much election fraud. What's really they're saying is, if the people hadn't known that the Democratic Party, in collusion with the Clinton campaign, was rigging the Democratic primary, then they would have voted for Hillary Clinton, and they wouldn't have stayed home, or they wouldn't have rebelled against the Democratic Party and say this is your spanking for cheating and what have you. And so we're going to vote for Donald Trump. People vote for all kind of different reasons. All right. So now they're trying to say the same thing that they did to Bernie Sanders' campaign. Cheated, rigged the process. Y'all know that. But now they're trying to say that's what the Russians did to the U.S. elections. So how are you going to ignore that the Democratic Party did the same thing, the DNC, the Democratic National? How many people resigned, want their DNC chairman resign, and then the second one, the interim, Donna Brazile, who also worked for the mainstream media, CNN, was forced to resign or basically fired from CNN for doing what? Rigging the doggone election. So how is John Lewis, what is he talking about? John Lewis is, I hate to put it this way, but sometimes we just have to put it in simple terms. This is what I'm starting to think about John Lewis. He's like one of those rent-a-Negroes, right? Okay, we want to put a black face in front of this, and it'll be great if we can show this black face who is so pitiful. He took all them butt whoopings and look at them knots on his head, on his skull from them police practicing, brutality against him as he was marching for voting rights. Again, let's keep it. He wasn't marching against racism, white supremacy. He was marching against an element of it. He thought, and he rightly thought, that black people should be able to vote since they pay taxes, since they are drafted into wars and go and fight for USA Inc. and conquering some non-white people's lands and what have you. So, but that's what he was really marching for. He wasn't marching, against racism and white supremacy. He was marching for voting rights. He got beat down, and he has tarnished that legacy from them beat downs because he voted to militarize the police. Yes, he did. So again, what is John Lewis talking about? Why is he always out front when the Democratic Party trying to pull one over on people or, just straight up lying to people? That particular image that I'm sharing with you now, that's John Lewis at the press conference, not for the Congressional Black Caucus, which is a caucus in the U.S. Congress, representatives who are black and represent, well, also you got a white person in there because he represents a primarily black district. If I'm not mistaken, Steve Cohen from Tennessee, he might be part of the Black Political Caucus, or it's really called the Congressional Black Caucus. But there's a lobbying organization out there that has a similar name. We did news reports on it at the time when John Lewis stood at the podium on behalf of this super PAC where a bunch of black people is peddling influence for money from corporations, and we covered in detail who they was taking money from, the very corporations that are producing things or engaged in 21st century slavery through the prison system, modern day slavery, and you're taking money from these people and you're passing legislation that they want you to pass. So you're not really representing your black constituents, and you're not representing black voters, and you're not representing black people in general because the majority of black people don't vote, okay? So, but they brought out John Lewis for that super PAC press conference. And they was practicing deception to make you think this was the Congressional Black Caucus officially endorsing Hillary Clinton. But it was not. It was the super PAC. And John Lewis, fronting for that super PAC, came out there to his shame and lied on Bernie Sanders and made people question whether or not he was lying about his civil rights creds. Like, oh, I was the only one out there getting punched in the head and dragged off to jail by the police. Bernie Sanders also got arrested, and he was highlighting that in his campaign and what have you. So that's why John Lewis did what he did. He was fronting for Hillary Super Predator Clinton, as I like to call her. He was fronting for her, and he was even willing to lie and manipulate the emotions of black people and say, look, you can take it from me. I took a butt whooping back in the 60s for you, so I'm not going to lie to you. But I never heard of Bernie Sanders. I never saw him. When I was at the March on Washington in the 1960s, it was maybe 1 million people out there, but I never saw him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, come on, man. That's just really pathetic. And that's we call it like we see it. He sold out. So they did all of this to influence the Democratic primary, even lied to people, manipulated. We had emails, which they're trying to say Russia is the reason that that they was rigging the Democratic primary. So again, what is John Lewis doing? What are the Democrats trying to do by saying that, making people believe that Trump was not legally elected to be the next CEO of USA Inc. Whose purpose does that serve? And more importantly, it's not true. So that's the type of person John Lewis is. He's one of those rent-a-Negroes for liberals, particularly white liberals, particularly the Clintons and what have you. So, but again, we're opening up the phone lines for the rest of the program. If you have anything to chime in on any of these topics, you can do so at 866-510-9025. That's 510-9025. Just hit ***. So, I really just don't, I really hope that people don't fall for or continue to fall for when they showcase these people. And again, I have to monitor the local media. And so I think it was on CNN when I came in the room. So I'm looking at CNN, and what are they showing photos of? They're showing photos of John Lewis getting a beat down. So why are they showing you photos of John Lewis getting a beat down? Like he was the only one that got arrested, that got prosecuted. There are a lot of activists who are in prison right now. We call them political prisoners, right? And John Lewis hasn't done anything to free black people who were locked up and victims of the COINTEL program that was being run against the very civil rights movement that he wants people to recognize as some kind of street cred and why he has some kind of credibility. He has lost all credibility in my eyes. So this is very childish. It is basically just trying to get black people emotional and to be a part of this. We've talked about this in prior broadcasts, maybe on Tando Radio Show, it might have been mentioned. I might have talked about it on BTR News, but we've been talked about the fake news aspect and how all these people falling in behind it. And I said, this could lead to a civil war. Check the record. I said it could lead to a civil war. It really could. And it's good news that black people with the election of Donald Trump are arming themselves and under, not that I look to the Constitution to bestow rights upon me, but exercising, as they say, their Second Amendment rights. We're getting reports coming out from black gun store owners about an increase in sales and people taking classes. But let's not play games. We way behind. But that's illegal gun ownership. There are a lot of quote unquote illegal guns in the hands of black people too. But who wants to see a civil war over fake news? But again, I'm not bought into USA Inc. like that, but I am a journalist. I like to call myself a journalist, and I have to be objective. But I try to approach my life, all my areas in my life like that, being objective. So now the next story, let me see. We got about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Let me pull up some of the headlines because the mainstream media is really pushing this story. Let me pull it up on news. Let's see here. Okay, I'm understanding still that the Facebook stream still may not. I'll work on that later, but we got other streams going. But okay, now here you got the Washington Post. Man, were they a what should I call it? A garbage pile of fake news stories during the campaign. And again, the internal emails reveal that the Clinton campaign has friends in the media, and they talked about pushing different stories. In the Washington Post, they got friends at the Washington Post, and their editorial they have to be smart enough to know what's going on. But anyway, they're running this article now saying that the Trump-Lewis feud could be a harbinger of a new round of hyperpartisanship. So how does this fit into black voters or black issues or whatnot? Why are they putting Trump out front? So what they going to try to do is get black people to buy into this, oh, we should not talk to the Trump administration. We shouldn't try to have meetings with the Trump administration or engage them and try to influence them on any kind of legislation. I don't like the Washington Post. I'm not even going to go there. But here is NBC News. One of the stories that they're running, here's a headline. Representative John Lewis, I don't see Trump as a legitimate president. Okay, then he's also on Twitter, John Lewis on Twitter. Well, y'all trying to blast Trump for being on Twitter. Again, y'all, don't look like you some kind of child where you're going to be laughing and picking and saying, oh, that's not presidential for Trump to be on Twitter, when all of these people are on Twitter, all of them. And again, what does presidential mean? Was George Washington being presidential when he was trying to circumvent the laws of Pennsylvania, which said that if a black person who was enslaved brought there to that state as a slave, and if they reside there for 6 months, that they become free? And George Washington will wait till about 5 months, and he'll ship them back to his little plantation kingdom at Mount Vernon just to circumvent the law so none of his slaves became free in Pennsylvania while he was the president, because that's where the president house was before the White House was built. Was that being presidential? Was Thomas Jefferson being presidential while he was having sex and producing children with his captive enslaved African who was related to his wife, I mean, come on. Was that being presidential? Not only was this guy committing adultery against his wife, but he bought his wife's half-sister from his father-in-law, who produced this half-white child who was a slave with one of his slaves. And so was Thomas Jefferson, when he purchased that child and then groomed her to be his sex slave, was that being presidential? Okay, so think about these words when you say these things. Again, they may have added that to the dictionary. So John Lewis he need to go sit down somewhere. I don't know why people keep voting the black voters, because that's his primary base in Georgia. He's got one of them primarily black districts. That's how he keeps getting sent back to Washington, to the federal government. Now, in terms of what he's doing to address the issues of racism, to address the issues of slavery, they call it mass incarceration. I call it a continuation and increase of slavery through the 13th Amendment. What is John Lewis doing to alleviate those problems in Georgia for those people in the district that he so-called represents? Let's judge his record. Why do we keep seeing photos of him getting his butt whooped? He marched. What has he done for black people lately? What has he done? What kind of legislation has he delivered on that we can say specifically was aimed at addressing racism or slavery? Again, if you want to talk about police brutality, which is part of his legacy, why did he vote to give these police departments these surplus military weapons and give them all this money? Why did he vote for the Joe Biden authored crime bill that was passed during the first Clinton administration? Why did he vote for all that? Why did you ask them white people? Why did you ask the Clintons to pass this mass incarceration legislation and shift $1 billion away from SNAP and social welfare programs for people, including housing, and place it over there for private prisons? So again, let black people, which is our primary concern on this network that was created for them, as an alternative to the other so-called black networks that are in fact not controlled by black people. This is why it's important that we create this media and have these conversations open. We don't have to agree on anything, but we have to hash these things out. We cannot be allowing ourselves to just simply make somebody else's agenda our own. Hillary Clinton's agenda is not our agenda. She has conceded the election. She is just a disgusting person. She's allowing all of this turmoil, all of this hostility, all of this bad energy to be created on her behalf by her surrogates like John Lewis, like whatever that guy named that was running her campaign, like Podesta, and like Donna Brazile on Twitter running her mouth too. Create all this bad energy for what? Because she lost, go home, shut up. But she don't say nothing. She get to play the nice and innocent Miss Ann. When the white woman has been the primary beneficiary from affirmative action programs, and she hasn't really fought for anything like that. Her agenda is for the white woman. The white woman is the womb of white supremacy. So why are we giving energy to this crooked woman when it's evident that her and the DNC cheated and rigged the election? And so if John Lewis wants to say that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, then Hillary Clinton was an illegitimate Democratic nominee. Because everything that y'all falsely accusing Russian hackers or whoever of doing, y'all did the same thing to Bernie Sanders and every other person who in. I think that guy from Maryland was in it. So I don't understand how seemingly intelligent people, now those people that are on these iHeart radio stations like the Steve Harveys, who we're going to talk about next, about the criticism he's getting for meeting with Donald Trump, is along the same lines. They're trying to get black people to just be so opposed and appalled at Donald Trump that you don't try to get anything out of him, out of his administration, I should say. That's not how politics work. We should be, our representatives, if you want to call it that. I don't call them my representatives, but I'm speaking in the jingle that most people understand. But if you want to call them our representative, well, if your representative, like John Lewis, is saying that this incoming CEO is illegitimate and I'm not going to work with him, I'm not going to try to negotiate with him to get him to help this job package that he say he want, which will indirectly benefit black people because it'll be some jobs created after Republicans blocked Obama's job package. So that's like him saying, I'm not going to work with him on anything. That's just ignorant. That's just childish. It's unprofessional. And I don't care if you got a D behind your name. I don't care if you got an R behind your name, a G behind your name. If you are in charge of the funds and distributing the funds that you are taking from us in the form of property taxes, sales taxes, FICA taxes, tax to death, you take out on average 30% of people's income, all of this taxes, then doggone right, I have something to say to those people that's in control of our collective funds. And for John Lewis to allow himself to be used in such a manner, it just goes to show you cannot be looking to him for leadership. And I hope white people don't think this man represents the black people in general, because he don't speak for me. I speak for myself. I don't even say I speak for most black people. They can call in and speak for themselves. So again, if anybody has any commentary on that, on the other side, we're going to take another music break. I do want to, let me pull up this artist information. I tell you, artists, y'all really got to get up on your MP3 tags. blacktalkmediaproject.org. We have linked to our knowledge-based website to where you can learn how to professionally tag using free resources, put your album cover image and, your title of your music. But we're getting ready to run some music. Again, I've asked the new artists out there, or excuse me, independent artists out there, if you want like your music to air on our network and on our station, just send it in to me, info@blacktalkmediaproject.org. In the subject title, say music submission or radio station submission, and giving us permission to share your music royalty free with our listening audience. So we have an artist called Sky Blue. You spell that SKYBLEW. So blue, not like the color, but blue as in, blowing something. He blew on this or that. So Sky Blue, we got, man, I don't want to mispronounce this. Nefet, how do you pronounce this? Nefalabata, I think, or Labata. We'll hear him say it. But yeah, he has a nice track. Keep that music coming in. I like some of your other tracks, but we're going to share this particular track with our listening audience tonight. So again, we have to support the independent artists, the grassroots artists that is in our communities. They not getting airplay on iHeartRadio owned stations or Kathy Hughes stations. They playing that murder music on their playlist because they say violence sells, pornography sales, all of that kind of garbage sales. There's no excuse. People will buy whatever you put in front of them, and they know it. So what is their ulterior motive? For suppressing these artists like we want to feature through our networks, in addition to what they're doing to get their music out to the public. Gotta support them. All right, so this is, again, Sky Blue, and he'll tell you the name of his track.
Contradicting the throne, but his life goes on. If it's too deep, she better repeat. Not to be sleep when I speak over MP3s. freeze. I feel the breeze out through my spirit, elevating through the lyrics. This my soul, can you hear it? All the ashes don't fear it. Shouts to my homegirl Celeste, who made the suggestion of this concept I invest in. Started with a picture I pressed in. That frame of mind I was blessed in. So let's stand on a good note. That food for thought and Nabisco. I snack well in them Oreos. Y'all bring it just like the movie shows, cause they ain't mine. Don't write rhymes, I paint lines. Ate before I shot for the stars, so I'm not aiming with a blank nine. They said we roses, but I started out as a late bloomer. I was in school plotting on destiny, and it turns out I got a date sooner. Yeah, I be that Nefe Labada, Nefe Labada. I be that Nefe Labada, Nefe Labada. That cloud walker, imagining dreams while you doing nada. I be that Nefe Labada, Nefe Labada. That cloud walker, imagining dreams while you doing nada. I be that Nefe Labada, Nefe Labada. Look up, let me get up in this. I'm just playing. I'm done rapping.
The Black Talk Radio Network is made possible in part with help from the Black Talk Media Project, a North Carolina-based nonprofit engaged in the production and distribution of independent digital black media. Find out more by going to blacktalkradionetwork.com or blacktalkmediaproject.org and look for the menu tab, Crowdfunding Black Media. Black Talk Media Project, helping to provide you with new black media for the new millennium. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio, new black media for the new millennium.
Hey, no, no, no.
And welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. Again, we're at our new time. I do appreciate those on Facebook that was letting us know we had no audio. I did resolve that issue. Again, I was working with some software app, and that probably messed up the settings. So glad to get that resolved. But welcome to Black Talk Radio News. We just got off of the topic about John Lewis trying to say that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president, which is basically an illegitimate statement in my opinion. It's an illegitimate issue. In fact, it's a non-issue. So please don't give your energy to the Democratic Party. Don't give your energy no longer to Hillary Clinton, who didn't mean you any good anyway, based off of her history. So don't give your energy to that. Now, other people are giving their energy to hating on Steve Harvey. Now, I have not always liked Steve, or something, I should say it this way. I have not always appreciated some of the things that Steve Harvey has said and some of the things that he has done, okay? But I'm not going to allow that to cloud my analysis of anything he comes out and says or something else that he does that's entirely unrelated. So Steve Harvey is catching headlines right now and catching hate from people in the black community, calling him a sellout and a traitor. So the news headlines have been saying that Steve Harvey met with Donald Trump to talk about homelessness and how he can maybe hook up with Ben Carson, who is being appointed. I don't think they've had his confirmation hearing yet, but being appointed to be the Secretary of Housing and I forget the exact term, urban housing policy and all that type of stuff. So Ben Carson is being up for that. So Steve Harvey used to be homeless when he was trying to make it into comedy and traveling around. I think he used to talk about sleeping in his car. So homelessness is a valid issue. And that's the reason why they say in the media that he was invited. And so now people saying since Steve Harvey took this meeting with Donald Trump to talk about basically homelessness in America, where you have millions of people who are homeless, and you got all this property, all these homes, which are empty. So, the government does need to address the homeless issue. Again, this is not something specific to black people, but a lot of black people are impacted by homelessness. So what's the problem? Donald Trump is the incoming CEO of USA Inc. He is in a strategic position to advocate that certain things make it into legislation, and he can sign those things into law. That includes funding for this, that, and the other. So, why would anybody have a problem? Why? Because y'all caught up in y'all emotions that Donald Trump, yes, he ran a racist campaign. He admitted it and what have you. Yes, he's still a super predator, and we shouldn't trust him no farther than we can throw him, and he's a pretty big guy, so I don't imagine too many people can throw him that far. But at the same time, power concedes nothing without a demand. What if Frederick Douglass said, you know what, I know Abraham Lincoln's a racist. I know that he thinks that black people are inferior, so I'm not going to talk to him, period. I'm not going to keep pestering him and writing him letters and going to the White House and saying, hey, we need to end slavery. We need to make this Civil War about slavery and not about keeping the Union together, because that's really what it was about. It wasn't to end slavery. When the Civil War started, it was about states' rights. Yes, the South's right to continue to practice legalized slavery, which they still do, along with the rest of America through the 13th Amendment loophole, which the Confederates helped write. But what if Frederick Douglass hadn't went to Lincoln and said, you know what, them white country boys is whooping up on you white northern boys. So Lincoln, you need to stop being a racist. You need to let black people in the Union Army, and you need to make the fight about abolition of slavery, and you need to let us in this fight so we can go and whoop them country white boys' butt up and down the South, because y'all getting y'all butt whooped without us. So stop being a racist. Too many people is in. I think there's 5 million people being held in slavery. So, what if Frederick Douglass had just took that attitude? I'm not going to meet with this racist. Then the Civil War would not have become about slavery, and those people who were enslaved would not have gotten a temporary reprieve from slavery. Again, slavery still exists. It's in the 13th Amendment, which at the conclusion of the Civil War, the North and the South agreed to continue slavery together with an exception clause that says that person first has to be convicted of a crime, sent to prison, and then the prisons can hire them out to the plantation, to the mining companies, to the railroad. They can do the call center work. They can process the chicken, the fish, and the poultry. We can ship our enslaved prisoners today and ship them to your plantation to process your turkeys on your turkey farm. This is stuff that goes on today. We can send them out to your farm and pick the crops, and we're not going to pay them anything. They just glad to get out and get some fresh air and get out from behind them bars for even just for an hour or two. It's slavery, people. It's slavery. Then when you look at the fact that the majority of people are in prison for nonviolent, victimless crimes. So again, I did not agree with Steve Harvey in working with Paula Deen, because Steve Harvey has like this little nonprofit foundation where he works with boys from single households, and it's primarily black boys, and they go off to this little camp and stuff, and he pays for it, and they interact with counselors and stuff. And so when that thing blew up with Paula Deen got caught on tape being not being codified, and she was talking about how she liked to have Negroes dress up at weddings and stuff and pretend like this is the 1860s and these is plantation slaves. And, all the racist things that she said. And Steve Harvey, invited her on to his little TV talk program and was making nice with racist Miss Ann. And then, okay, I could see you doing that for the ratings, and money is all you trying to do is put in your pocket. You do work for the corporate media. So yeah, I could see why you might have that person come on. I can't recall if race was discussed in a meaningful way on that show. But then when he invited her to be part of the staff to teach these little black boys how to cook, I was like, you just went too far, dude. Why do you want to expose these vulnerable young black boys and confuse them about white people like Paula Deen? So I don't agree with all of that. But because he done those things, and I don't like how he is a distraction from real issues and what have you, I don't see anything wrong with him meeting with Donald Trump to talk about homelessness. Okay? Now here's the kicker. All of you people that's calling him a traitor, hater, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Neely Fuller suggests, and I agree with the suggestion, but sometimes we do have to call a spade or whatever. All right, but we shouldn't engage in petty name calling. So, but y'all want to say he cooning, how dare he go meet with the CEO of USA Inc. and talk to him about homelessness? Well, guess who told him to do it? But President Barack Obama. I talked about this on a prior broadcast. Y'all talking all this smack about Kanye meeting with Donald Trump and this and that. But what about Hillary Clinton in that not Hillary Clinton. Don't mean to confuse her with Michelle Obama. That was a big mistake there. I don't know how I could get the two confused. But Michelle Obama said in her little Oprah Winfrey exit interview how they were going to help the Trumps. How Mrs. Trump, I forget her name, what is it, Melania or something like that, she is going to put her on speed dial. She's in the club now, and I'm going to help her in this transition. Well, Steve Harvey said that President Obama himself called Steve Harvey and told him to meet with Donald Trump. So why y'all ain't blasting on the Obamas and calling them traitors and saying, how dare they work with the Trump transition team and all this and that, So that's just, again, I know where it comes from. It gets planted into your minds. These white-owned platforms like the Griot, I see that they like writing these articles with name-calling and juvenile-type stuff and getting people to pick sides based on political affiliation and not to present the news to you in an objective fashion and say, hey, here's the facts, you decide. And even if you giving an opinion, which is mostly all they put out, do you have to be so juvenile in your writing where it's just like gossip and it's not real news, it's fake news. It's playing on people need to have somebody to point at, to criticize, to do whatever. But Marcus Garvey met with the Klan. Yes, he did. Malcolm X, I talked about this in past broadcasts. Malcolm X met with the Klan, through the Nation of Islam under the direction of Elijah Muhammad. What was these meetings about? You going to stop practicing terrorism against our members. That's what it was about. It wasn't to go kiss they behind. It wasn't to go, make nice. It was to go place a demand. Because, I was talking to my mother about this earlier, what has she been hearing about people talking about Steve Harvey meeting with Donald Trump? And she was like, that's just so ignorant because you must have a dialogue in order. You got to have these sort of meetings. There has to be dialogue for anything to get done. So what are the Democrats telling black people? Just sit on the sidelines for the next 8 years and do like you did Barack Obama and not placing a demand? Again, the black farmers had a demand. Tavis Smiley and Cornel West had a demand. But what did a lot of the corporate media do? Get the masses to fall into this juvenile thinking, oh, they just hating on Obama. He just mad because he couldn't get no tickets to the inauguration and all this and that. And don't press him too hard. He got to deal with them Republicans. And that's why, and you know, just didn't really ask anything of this man's administration. So what, y'all gonna do the same thing with Trump administration? Not say anything to the Trump administration about the continuation of slavery through the 13th Amendment exception clause? We know he's for private prisons. We know he likes to be the law and order type, but that still does not prevent me from engaging this man on the issues. Because what do they say? Silence, to be silent sometimes is being complicit. It's like if we don't say no, then they will assume, oh, well, black people are okay with it. They didn't say nothing. So I'm engaged with everybody out there in dialogue while I'm engaging in my other efforts and countermeasures to undermine the system of racism and slavery. So homelessness is a serious problem. Now, what would y'all say about me if Donald Trump came across the Black Talk Media Project, which again is a registered new media organization, nonprofit based here in North Carolina, been operating for 8 years. We come on, we talk about black issues, but from an organizational standpoint, our concern is not just in addition to the lack of independent, truly independent black voices. I ain't talking about black people on corporate media speaking for Democrats. I'm talking about black independent voices such as mine, such as others on this network, such as others on other networks. So, but I also advocate for cleaning up the terrestrial airways, like Clear the Airways Project talks about. Why do we have to tolerate this filth, this music that's glorifying criminal behavior, the mistreatment of other African descendant people, promoting black on black crime? Ask yourself, why is McDonald's, why is Target, why is any of these businesses advertising on these stations that's putting out such filth? Such anti-life programming? It's got to be a reason. And why is the United States government allowing it? Again, they make room for adult, let's just call it adult programming. You can't get too X-rated with it, but from 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time until 6 o'clock a.m., you can play some of your more, let's say, content or music that's of a sexual nature or talking about whatever. You know, it's not meant for children's ears. Nobody's saying be approved. Nobody's saying anything like that. We are not talking about censoring people, but we're talking about the public airwaves. Okay, there's a difference. There's a big difference, and we have to hold the line. So if Donald Trump came across this video, heard me talking about these issues, as the president and the founder of Black Talk Media Project, what would y'all say about me if I took that meeting? Okay, if I had to do a fundraiser to come up with the funds for me to buy the airplane ticket and have hotel lodging, because I'm not going to accept anything from them. And then I go up there and I meet with him on the issue of the FCC. And them not doing what they should be doing and clearing the airways of this killer radio music that's programming people to commit crime, to commit murders, to sell drugs, to use drugs, and all of that type of stuff. Yes, I would take that meeting. I would be derelict in my duties as the main representative of this organization not to take that meeting. I'm a lobbyist as well. I lobby on these issues for black people concerning black media and the media targeting us. So I would raise that issue. Does that mean that they would implement My ideal and what is my ideal? Quite simply enforcing the laws on the book concerning obscene music on FCC licensed airwaves. So would he do it? Would he make that a point that whoever his nominee is going to become the new FCC chairman, that has to be their number one priority or on their agenda to start enforcing the law and finding these stations and finding these corporations when they play obscene music on the radio, when they don't adhere to the already established rules. So again, I don't care who it is. Nothing gets done, or you get nothing without a demand, without opening up your mouth and asking for it. So no, did I vote for Donald Trump? Do I even like Donald Trump? I don't know Donald Trump. I don't like him as what I've seen from him in the media. He doesn't seem to be a very nice person. He seems to be a racist. I've seen pictures, I haven't verified them, of his family in full KKK regalia. And, his company, his father's company, has been documented to practice racism. But, okay, he's a racist, if you want to say that. I'm meeting with whoever. I'm going to meet with the racist so I can tell the racist to his face, stop practicing racism. But if I'm just meeting with him again, keeping my issues, sticking to the issues and what my organization is about on a very important issue that's impacting in many different people activity areas, is cleaning up the public airways. I will meet with him. I will continue to call for his administration to clear up the airways and start calling out these corporations who are funding all of this garbage music that Michelle Obama say hurt her ears so much, but she hasn't said anything about this filthy programming going across the radio airways. So I don't see this as a cause to be calling Steve Harvey names or to be getting angry at Steve Harvey or anything like that. Somebody's unmuted themselves. Listen, y'all know how I can talk. And then I'm doing multiple things. So if you unmute yourself, say, hey, Scotty, I have a question or a comment, just letting you know I'm here. But because I may not see you. So 414, you've unmuted yourself. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a question or comment on what we discussed thus far? We do have some other topics that we're going to get into as well. The other topic, can black men counter racism by getting white women pregnant? But right now I'm talking about Steve Harvey meeting with Donald Trump, and we've discussed John Lewis talking about Donald Trump's the illegitimate CEO of USA Inc. Go ahead, 414. If you want to share your name, go ahead with your question or comment.
Hey, what's going on, brothers? It's Rob from Milwaukee.
Peace to you, Rob. I can hear you. Go ahead with your question or comment. Good to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. I chimed in kind of late, man. I just woke up. Took a muscle relaxer sitting here, so I dozed off. But I would like to comment on Steve Harvey meeting with Donald Trump. I agree with your comment saying I got a chuckle out of that. So you meet with the racist to his face and tell him to stop practicing racism. I definitely agree with that. But what I will say is my observation is that the people that I have seen meet with Donald Trump, they didn't seem to be comfortable standing next to him. And that's the only observation that I had. They are victims, and Mr. West is married to a white female, so he is gonna be the president. So it's not like under this system we can get away from dealing with him. So meeting with them, I don't think that a person should be name called or called to the carpet just for a meeting. And thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, great observation. And of course, we're on up until 10 o'clock tonight. So if you want to chime back in, just hit star. But yeah, Steve Harvey does not look comfortable from what I could see. So that's a good observation. Kanye West, again, I don't quite recall watching those videos all the way through. I just might have saw a clip or something like that. But it would be awkward. I mean, it would be awkward for me if Donald Trump again heard me tonight, came across the video or podcast later, tweeted at him and said, hey, I heard what you talked about, all that filth and garbage being promoted on radio stations targeting black people and your concerns about the FCC not enforcing the rules on obscene music, and all of these black children are hearing them being referred to as B's and H's and, derogatory names and what have you. And yes, I would go meet with him, but I'm going to tell you, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward and what have you, but I would have that meeting because I would feel like, why not? Again, anytime that you can speak to people who are in a better position and they open up that door, go in and put your demand on the table. Does that mean that they're going to meet your demand? No, it doesn't mean that. But they can't say, oh, well, you didn't open your mouth. You didn't say nothing. I assume you like my policies, or I assume you like things as is. We have to be on record with our objections and whatnot. But again, keeping a narrow focus on the issue of homelessness, if that's what Steve Harvey, now my next question would be, though, why Steve Harvey? Him being homeless and being a celebrity and having a radio show, having a TV show, having lots of influence in terms of his reach through the media, of white people's platforms. Being homeless does not qualify him as an expert on the issue of homelessness. So again, maybe he has a publicist who hasn't really publicized his efforts to address homelessness. I don't know if he's funding any organizations. That's all they work on 24/7, 365 days a year. It's the issue of homelessness, and they lobby Congress to pass legislation. I don't know. I don't know why he reached out, and why did the Obama administration, why did Barack Obama call Steve Harvey up on the phone and say, Mr. Harvey, Brother Steve, I want you to go meet with Donald Trump and talk about the homeless, because you used to be homeless, didn't you, bro? Yeah. So, yeah, you'll be a good person. So, I mean, what is Barack Obama doing? Why is he sending Steve Harvey to talk about a celebrity? An entertainer? Again, that does not mean Steve Harvey is not educated on these issues, but I have not seen these issues of him being front and center, using his influence to make these issues front and center. I should say, again, I don't have a million eyes out there to see everything, but again, why isn't his publicist getting that information out there? I know about his school for trying to help this summer camp that he's trying to help black boys from single parent homes. And I know about that because he invited Paula Deen, a racist, to come teach little black boys how to cook. That's how I found out about that. So what is Steve Harvey's expertise on homelessness? So if I'm gonna be critically analytical and have something to say about it, that's what I would say. Now that's valid. That's valid. What makes Steve Harvey an expert on homelessness? Had he worked with President Obama on a homelessness initiative? I haven't even heard of a homelessness initiative that Obama or his wife championed in 8 years. Not to say there wasn't any money from the federal government directed at the issue, but I did not really hear them talking about it like I heard Miss Obama talk about. You got to move, you got to exercise, and also we want to make sure our kids are getting healthy lunches in public school. So I didn't hear homelessness or any of those sort of issues. So that would be my question, why Steve Harvey? What makes him an expert? Just like I asked the question, Ben Carson. He's a neurosurgeon. Wouldn't it make more sense for him to be nominated to become the next Surgeon General of the United States to talk about health issues and things of that nature? I understand that one time his mama may have gotten Section 8, because I don't know if they lived in so-called public housing or not. Well, public housing is any house that the government is subsidizing. You can get vouchers and take them to a private landowner who has a house, and he'll take that voucher and get his money from the federal government. So there's, public housing is not just a bunch of apartment buildings, where you stacking people on top of people. All right. So Ben Carson, I understand in his youth at one time, his mother might have utilized public housing. So does that qualify Ben Carson to be the person in charge of that part of the federal government on urban housing and development? Is Ben Carson a real estate developer in his spare time? How is he going to develop the urban centers of America? What expertise does he have on that? Okay, did he take any kind of courses or any kind of classes on city planning or any kind of thing like that? Not that I know of. As far as I know, he wrote a book talking about how he rose from the ghettos of Detroit and went to school and became a neurosurgeon, and the first neurosurgeon, regardless of his skin color, to successfully separate conjoined twins who were joined at the head. Talking about, I think his book was Gifted Hands or something like that. So I know he would be a great person that I would say, yeah, he's qualified to become the United States Surgeon General. But the urban development and housing, no. Just because he lived in Section 8 housing does not make him an expert or give him any kind of special insight on how do we address any kind of issues. Now, then my issue would be what did Steve Harvey say to him? This was a closed-door meeting, so if there was some confidentiality implied, then I understand why he's not talking about it. But if I was asked about homelessness, if I was and I was invited to speak to him, I would be speaking to him about lifting the ban of people who have been targeted in modern day slavery and human trafficking, labeled felons, most of them during the 1990s, who are banned from using public housing. And then these people are forced to be homeless when they get out of prison. And then guess what? They're not going to live under bridges. They're going to do what they have to do to keep a roof over their head. If they can't get help from the government, then if they have to rob, if they have to steal, if they have to sell drugs, you're forcing people to make those decisions. So let's lift the ban on that, and not be having a lifetime ban. Yeah, if you get caught doing that, yeah, you get banned for however many years. But if you've been to prison, done your time, so to speak, paid your debt to society, where you made a bunch of money for whoever you made money for as a modern slave, they shouldn't be barring you for a life from those benefits. Because guess what? When they are working, they are paying taxes. Are they not paying taxes? They're paying taxes into these programs that's being provided to others. So that's what I would say to Donald Trump. Would he do it? Probably not. But I would still say that. 414, did you want to chime back in, Rob? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I had some information that I wanted to share with you from the ground concerning that the fallout from the Sherman Park unrest that had happened out here when the officer shot the black male, Seville Smith.
Yes, I remember.
Okay, so after the burnings and the fires and stuff that took place, the governor had allocated some funds to the quote-unquote Sherman Park area. Okay. It was about $4.5 million, and in that money, there was funds allocated for quote-unquote dollar houses to be sold in rehab. Okay. Now, it's been a lot of talk in the community, on our local radio programs, that in actuality that the dollar houses is a land grab because, okay, they're advertised as dollar houses, but when when it actually rolled out, it was basically just offered for developers, because at the end of the day, you needed $250,000 and or more to even be a participant in the program. And a lot of the people in the community have been speaking out. They've been down at the building, the safety building where they was holding the meetings at. The community members were down there protesting, and it's going to be interesting to see what Wisconsin looks like once the president-elect takes office, because Milwaukee, Wisconsin is such a hotbed right now, with the first order of business being drug testing, people that's receiving government benefits, whether that's SNAP or monthly checks or whatever type of benefit, Medicaid or whatever it is that you are receiving from the government. They've been playing that on our local news like that's the first order of business that they're going at. And I've already seen that the bill is on the table to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act. And thank you.
Okay. Let me address some of those again. You can always unmute yourself, hit star. I see you on the board, or just chime in case I'm droning on and I don't see you on the board. Say, hey, Scotty, I got a question or a comment for you. Several issues there. I've never heard of this program, but as he stated, it's local to that area that this money was allocated, so-called for urban development. But it seems like that they've made the requirements to get access to this money or to this land. You have to come up with $250,000. Now, I don't even know if there's any black real estate development companies, black-owned, in that area. But I can see how they have used in the past to raise the bar like that, so to speak, so that they could shut certain firms out. But again, if this is a state grant, you have to look to state laws. And what do you have affirmative action type laws that's pertaining to state money in Wisconsin? I can't answer that question. But if this was federal money coming from the federal government to develop an area similar type program, then by law, as the laws stand, they have to allocate a certain number of those, a percentage of that, to quote unquote minority firms. But again, I don't like that term minority, because in the system of racism, white women are classified as a minority when in fact they are the majority population in this country. There is no bigger, larger political base than white women. Okay, you had to be a terrible white woman in order to lose to Donald Trump. All right, because white women did not choose Hillary Clinton, and they are the number one voting demographic in this country. But they're listed as minorities as if they're powerless or they don't hold any power. Yes, they still dealing with discrimination and pay in the workplace, but again, Hillary Clinton discriminated against her own staffers in a similar fashion. So, but again, with the federal right now, certain minority firms are supposed to get that. So what a lot of the white males would do is set up like a LLC, a shell corporation or something like that, that will apply for the land in their wife's name or their mother's name. then they're classified as a minority, and then who's really getting the money? The white male, and not the real so-called minority, or who is supposed to help, and that is those who have had racism, institutional racism, practice against them. And so it just depends. There's lots of variables that you're talking about there. So I will defer to your local black radio station and anybody there that's talking about it, because they would probably know state law and know this particular program. But just generically, I could see that it could be a land grab. So yeah, thanks for sharing that news. Let me see, what time is it? We're going to take our last station identification break, play some message music. I don't have any graphics for these particular artists, but I played them before. In fact, this track is about a year old. Oh, by the way, our brother Sincere Nokwari of God Life, who is a hip-hop artist. He doesn't really rap. He makes instrumentals. If y'all are hip hop artists out there looking for some fat beats, check him out. Just Google Sincere Nokwari. I think his website is sincerenokwari.com. He is about to, what would you call that? Debut his new mixtape. And I'm looking forward to that. I've already listened to some of it, as I got advanced copies, and so, but he hasn't officially launched the album yet, so I'm not going to share any of that. But hey, I just love it that we got people out there that's practicing counter propaganda through music. All right, because music is a form of media. It's a way of conveying messages to people. But the track that I want to play, if I could find it, we'll just roll with Hakeem Green talking about modern day slavery through the 13th Amendment. Private prisons is not mass incarceration. People correctly call it the continuation of slavery. So we're going to play that track. And then when we come back, we'll open up our last topic: can black men counter racism by getting white women pregnant, which was actually a question that was put forth on Tando radio show this week by our last caller. And I mentioned on air, as I'm the engineer for that program, I just mentioned I'd like to continue that conversation and have a logical discussion, because I can see both point of views on this side of the issue. You say some people saying until racism as a system has ended, and I would add slavery has ended, that there shouldn't be any kind of sexual relationships going on between white people and victims of racism until that system is ended. If they really want to mate with black people, then they should end the system of racism, stop practicing slavery, and then, yeah, we'll say a system of justice exists, people go for it. I understand that. But then on the flip side, I understand also those who say that we can speed up the genetic annihilation of white people because they're most likely to turn out to be racist. In fact, you have to be white to be a racist in a system that's perpetuating white supremacy. I don't want to get into individual acts of racism, which individuals can do or engage in regardless of skin color, but we're talking about institutionally and undermining it through genetic annihilation. And so rape has been used as a weapon all throughout warfare. Why? To confuse the populations. Those children will grow up, their loyalties might be confused or what have you. But then at the same time, I can see examples where the exact opposite happened, where a half white person, so-called mulatto, I don't like that term, in a system of racism, mulattoes are black, all right, but they were enslaved. It didn't matter that their father was the plantation owner. He didn't see them as a son or a daughter. In fact, they probably had in sexual relationships with them or passed them around to other plantation owners or whatnot. But you can read, if you study history like I do, in terms of resistance to slavery pre-1865, you will find out many of these leaders of these rebellions were, quote unquote, mulattoes. But who were they being raised by and how they were being treated determined their action in their worldview. So, I mean, yeah, it depends on who's raising the child. What's the child being programmed with? But also, since we know that for the first time, since they've been keeping statistics that white people's birth rates are now below their death rates, meaning quite simply more of them are dying than there are being born. If that's the case, then that means that there will be less possible people that's going to be in this world to practice racism. So how is that not countering racism? So, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but really it's not. So we'll open up the next hour. Perhaps somebody can articulate it better than I can, no matter what position they take. But I'm not on here to debate with anybody. I'm on here to look at this objectively, and if I see a logic in this person's reasoning for what they're saying is a way to go, or the other person who takes a different, hey, it's all about having dialogue and understanding why people take these point of views and what have you. We shouldn't be pointing the fingers at each other and say, if you don't follow the way that I follow exactly, then look, I can't work with you, or I'm going to talk bad about you, and I'm not going to focus on racist, but I'm going to focus on you. You know what I'm saying? We got too much squabbling going on between victims, and they not taking time out to try to understand the reasoning of why that individual may be doing what he's doing, promoting what he's promoting, or talking about what he's talking about. All right, so and the last thing before we go into this music break, and again, you're listening to Black Talk Radio News, our weekly broadcast on Saturday nights from 7 to 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Like I heard somebody keeps emailing me. It's not important who this person is. But they called into one of our media partners' programs. That is a political, everybody know it's a political talk radio program. That's what's advertised. So why would you call in to these people program and tell them that what they're doing is a complete waste of time, because politics is a complete waste of time? Okay, why do you want to use your energy squabbling with them black people and telling them that they basically is stupid because they engaging in something that'll never lead to nothing? Why would you do that? That doesn't lead, don't tune in if you don't want to hear it. That's what I'm saying. If you think politics is a waste of time, why are you tuning in to a political talk radio? You're looking to come on to confront people. Why would you call in? You're looking to call in to cause friction among black people. We ain't all going to agree 100%, but we have to respect people. And those people have a right to determine what people activity area they want to engage in. Now, you can come up with your own radio show, your own. Just go to Twitter, go to Facebook, all this free social media, which really ain't free. But you can say, hey, I think economics, even though economics controlled by politics, but you can say, oh, I think black people's path to getting out from under white supremacy is to focus more on just the area economics. Now, see, I don't agree with that, because who passes the laws that controls what you can sell, what you can't sell, who you can do business with around the world, and all that's controlled by who? Politicians passing laws. So you can't say economics. That seems to be, or what we're told is all black people in Tulsa, Oklahoma focused on. Being self-sufficient economically, having an enclosed enclave, their own cities and towns. We had one here in North Carolina. They were all over the place, just called Black Wall Streets. But did that stop white people, racists more specifically, from destroying what those black people built? Because guess what? While they were focusing on economics, they wasn't focusing on the people activity area of war. And when war was waged against them, they got destroyed. So you know, I'm not about conflict. I'm about common sense. I'm about being logical. And I'm not about people insulting other people, pretending like we got it all figured out. Because if you figured it all out and you had the way forward, then you wouldn't be in the same position I am, subject to racism, white supremacy. So we trying to all figure this out. We got different areas that we can focus on because, you know, yeah, we got the jacks of all trades, but the master of nones. So, you know, I don't begrudge anyone from focusing on one particular area, but you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to disrespect that person. By number one, if I don't believe in participating in politics, I'm not tuning in to a political talk radio show, and I'm darn sure are not calling in to tell these people that what they're doing is not going to lead to anything. That's just, it's not cool. It's not cool, and it shows a lack of maturity. Again, start your own media stuff, and you can put out your own message, and people can come listen to you and dialogue with you. But you're not opening up dialogue by telling people that they're wrong flat out. Okay? So you're listening to Black Talk Radio News, where you'll hear all kind of news and views on this program, this weekly program that comes on once a week. So I'm going to find some message music for you. Take a quick break. When we come back, phone lines again will be open. 866-510-9025. 866-510-9025. We'll be back on the other side.
Sincere
I'd like to introduce
Macquarie.
Cleanup hitter. And that's a gentleman who has been around progressive circles for many years. He's been an activist for more years than as many years as many of us have been alive, more years than some of us have been alive. The most remarkable thing to me that I know that this gentleman has done was he introduced to the television audience for the first time the Zapruder film regarding the Kennedy assassination on a Dick Cavett talk show, and we'll have to ask him when that was, many, many years ago. But anyway, the person I'm going to introduce is going to entertain us here for a few minutes. His name is Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory, come on out.
I trick y'all. Y'all looking for... Y'all looking at me come from the back. I came from the front. I listened to you this morning, sister, and thought about had it not been for the civil rights movement that liberated all of us, you wouldn't have had this space. And when you think about how this system has messed up our mouth, how many PhDs you got? I look at my mother. What a lady. Worked 2 jobs all year because she had 6 children. So we could have Christmas. Christmas. You know how ignorant you got to be to work your butt off? Not for your children to go to college, because that wasn't even in our mentality. For Santa Claus. And when that black woman worked her butt off, she tell me a white man bought this, and y'all don't even know who we are. Think about that. You man, a Jew being dumb enough to say Hitler and the Nazis brought you these toys? And that's the big problem. We know all of it. That's why I didn't have to do too much to move over into this. I lived around nothing but black folk. I didn't see. I'm 81 years old. We didn't have TV then. Wasn't even invented. Radio. You know how dumb you got to be to listen to a tap dancer on the radio? So if I'm not around white folks, and the only white folks I see in the movie, I didn't know it was no dumb white folks till I went to white college. I didn't know it was no ugly white folks till I went to white college. kitchen, call my mother. Mom, I wish he was here. I saw an ugly white dude today. She said, son, have you started that drinking?
May appear a confusing blur of activity, each ant doing its own thing, but it can't be. Somehow the ants coordinate their actions so that large insects are overwhelmed, killed and carried back to the base.
Pairs is dying and my people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Watch what comes out your mouth. People are suffering. It's elementary, they want us all gone eventually. Pairs is dying, people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Pairs is dying and my people are suffering. The money's still low, they want us all gone eventually. I swear to God, living in this economy's like a robbery. The government taxing me when they owe me for my property. You niggas act like you happy to live in poverty. When I feel like a king, I gotta make these fools acknowledge me. I'm royalty and loyal to the feeling of it. The contrast make it look thuggish. We talk, walk, and look rugged. Naturally, nothing sad to see. We all a part of this tragedy. I'm mad at you, so why you mad at me?
We headed for the times of the 9. Watch out, 6. Sun cycle on the rise, moon cycle out the mix. Living on this planet of the snakes and the crucifix. Pardon yourself as I unk my way through, marching with my A-boom boom, making my debut. Like great balls of fire, nothing could save you in these replenishing times. I honor my dead, making my ancestors proud when it's off with your head.
Does my pencil possess potential to change mentals? Yes. Sure what you can in this pack with the essential less. What is essential to keep it as sharp as against? So yes. What is essential to keep it like a temple? Blast, alter the temple, keeping the beat simple and fresh. While they whimper and rest, I'm intuition like the simplest gas. Into tradition, I'm on a mission until I transition to give the up and coming a better existence.
I seen a beggar scorn reaching for a corner too. The older we get, it switches up the point of view. And they anointed you, leader of the free world. Desolate minds refined to the B-girl. The most benevolent is evident who I be. Graffiti on the wall, the crew, Drew Ali. Zoo to our key, shifting on the paradigm. Raise the vibration, then go prepare the mind.
Define magnificent red gem, dig deep. The omnipotent, all-seeing, I just speak the game plan. I pray for niggas, amen. Fat Sharpie, spray can, I'm made man. With suede vans, no street skating, no beat taking. For Pete's sake, he's a beast quaking, the scene shaking. No mistaking, the ants conquer the elephants. FTP, RBG, the rest develop.
What's the ant's secret that makes them the most efficient predators on Earth, consuming more meat than lions, tigers, and wolves combined?
I'm way medicated, puff lying, lace sedated, and stay dedicated to culture that created the essence of the lessons now delivered in my presence. Kalanji called upon me, so now I pose the question: how is it that the blacks came in whips and chains, having nothing else to lose and everything to gain? Now niggas entertain for some whips and chains, a white dame and some fame. Is that shit not strange?
It's kinda hard holding down your dreams when you blacking in America with institutions set to bury you 6 feet underneath dirt and debt deep. Disciples psychological when making those ends meet and needs be. A hand feeds the other teases. Gather thoughts, grab the Gatling for good reason. In between success, devil's greed, a pine box of mind jogs elusive.
And why I come off and camouflage, can't take cloth. Eating lentils and vegetable broth, but I ain't never been soft. Leading the lost and forsaken by any cost. Bones aching, working hard, trying to bring home the turkey bacon, breaking laws of gravity. Fuck with the family and watch me savagely crush craniums and chest cavities to pray for the casualties. Cause my anatomy is naturally, casually composed. This is self-construction for the soul.
I'm black dynamite, I'll blast you with my nitros. For the dope piece, for the gold piece, in a book with 5 disciples. We channeling boot mind, the revolution sparker. With 8 bars, cigar smoking to dark room on the altar. Watch the daughter work a mojo, walk the stage without a hype man. Electric verses turn the great crowd into light rain. Flood psyches with the ill beats, the brain food that's got high fly wisdom. Called saucy, the enlightener, that's side rock.
2012 and times are different yet the same. Nowadays the number of prisoners behind the cage outnumber amounts of those enslaved during the trades. And shame we killing ourselves over what set you blame. Getting shot instead of hang. Nothing changed for the better except the cheddar of corporate profit to gain. The more money in pocket, the more people in chains. Unite niggas who bang, destroy their main aim.
It's all connected, form a web like an Anzi. It's the people, Siafu is the army. Start a top contender, oil plots a new agenda. They even breathe on the track, sucker empty for dinner. All that garbage I penning, this right here's the ending. Words the venom, getting them wrapped in Egyptian linen. Coming for head, this rapper, Kali will shake the rafters. Only thing standing after, walking natural disaster. Rapture.
Welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. Again, this is Scotty Reid in on this broadcast from behind these enemy lines that I call USA Inc. Yes, USA Inc. That what you call a government is really a corporation. It incorporated in 1861, and that's why they get along so good with other corporations and they're so corporate friendly. It's because they are a corporation. So a lot of people, if you just read history, there are so many hidden facts that you would just be like, you know, how did they hide this from me? Like the fact that they've been practicing slavery ever since 1865 and it never really did end at that time. So our last topic, I kind of call it fear of a black planet. The reason I'm going to call it fear of a black planet because when I was like, I would say my early 20s, I might have been in my early 20s, when this historic album came out by Public Enemy, one, I believe it's on the track, Fear of a Black Planet, you hear Chuck D saying, black woman, white man, black baby, white woman, black male, black baby. And what I got from that was, regardless of the racial mixture, again, racial classifications are a product of slavery. They came up with these classifications so that they can make it blacks only slavery, make it legal to only target, and then that way the other people they were abusing will join in the abuse of black people, and then they get the profit from slavery too, even if they don't even enslave anyone. So on there they were saying that, you know, that's what I got was that regardless, that baby is going to be classified as black. Now, how that child interacts in this system or with the system or in the community that it raised in, where it depends on what community it's raised in. It depends on who's the primary caregiver, therefore teacher of that child. So you could take a black child and program them with so much anti-blackness that when they become adults, they'll be Clarence Thomas. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that his parents programmed him with so much anti-blackness, because a lot of the programming is external and it comes from outside our community, but we still fall susceptible to it all the same. So again, we have two camps. We have those who say that in a system of racism that blacks should not be having marital relations with white people until the system has ended. I can understand that. If a person told me that's what they practice, I say that sounds logical to me. It's not a matter of whether I agree with it or not, because these are individuals. They have their own free will, and who am I to say, you know, whether or not they should do this or shouldn't do that? You know, if the goal is to end racism and this system of slavery, okay? It's for me to determine whether or not it's based on logic, this tactic. So that seems logical to me. That means then that all of these people, let's just say all the black women out there that's married to powerful white men, they got lots of money. If they said, you know what, the bedroom is off limits, I'm not going to divorce you, but the bedroom is off limits until you start setting up a foundation that's going to route hundreds of millions of dollars to making sure that black children get a proper education, anything to address poverty, to address housing, to address the system of racism. If you're not going to use your money to do that, then guess what? We might have to get a divorce, so we'll just be separated. We'll have separate bedrooms and whatnot. So it's all about these people in these relationships using their influence and using their leverage. But I understand the logic. That's opposed to, according to what they say, that might cause white people to end racism because they love to have sex with black people. Not trying to be crude, but we trying to just be real and use the most direct language as possible without being vulgar. So again, it just depends. Now, there are those who might look at statistics today and say, guess what? The United States has been engaged in continuous warfare since World War II, since, the last great war. And they have even though these are undeclared war, they've been sending a lot of white boys to die in Vietnam. They've been sending lots of white boys to South America, sending lots of white boys to Africa in these secret operations we don't always hear about, sending lots of white boys to Afghanistan, sending lots of white boys to Iraq, and they're getting blown to bits, they're getting killed, or their brains are being so damaged that they can't even function, and that's why they have a high percentage of homelessness. So they've been doing this, and guess what? That has led to their population decline. I'm talking about white people in America, classified as Americans, if you want to talk about nations. I'm not talking about Europe. I've seen nothing to say that the European birth rates in those nations of white people is declining because they sending all their troops to war to fight and kill people. No, they let the United States send all their white boys to go fight and kill people. So now we have a situation also with the white female who's trying to move up in the corporate world, and she's putting off childbirth and what have you, and so she can go to school, so she can devote long hours, 80-hour weeks or more to her career so she can move up the corporate ladder. So they're putting off having children. So now you don't have as many white children being born. And so now you have a situation where the first time in U.S. history since they've been keeping these statistics, the birth rate is below their death rate. So if I was a cynical type person and I didn't care about innocent people being killed, I might cheer for the United States to go to war with Russia and keep sending white boys over there and let these white people kill each other. That leads to, because, and I agree with Mr. Fuller assessment, Mr. Neely Fuller, counter-racist author, I agree with his assessment that while all white people are not racist, you do have to be white to be a white supremacist, a.k.a. a racist white person. So I say, let these suspects keep killing each other, because the less of them that we have, that leads to, you would think, doing the math, quite simply, that's less racist in the world. So I might cheer for Donald Trump to, hey, don't be trying to cool things down with the Russians. Yeah, go to war with them. Yeah, turn Syria into a bigger battlefield and let it turn into another world war. And yeah, all these white boys will be all gung-ho and talking about USA Inc. and thinking they gonna get some hero worshiping and stuff like that, and it's leading to their population decline. Again, I'm talking about this in the context of a racist system. I'm not saying all people are racist, but I'm saying, like Mr. Fuller said, you do got to be white to be racist. Now, like Rob said, like Rob had put forth on Tando radio show, there are some who say that black men should have purposely get white women pregnant so that there are not so many. Let me put it like this. We would rather white women give birth to quote unquote mulatto babies, which in the system of racism is a black baby, like Public Enemy said. All right. So do we want them having black babies, or do we want white women having white babies? Okay. Now the babies are in decline. So again, there are nuances to this. If the black father is going to stick around, not saying black fathers don't stick around. I want to make that clear. I've done the research. Black men are more attendant to their children than any demographic, according to the Center for Disease Control. But if these black men stay in a relationship, or let's say they break up with these women and they sue for custody and gain custody of these children, it is upon those black men to make sure that those children are not being raised to practice racism or anything. All right. Same with the black woman who's having black babies by white males. All right. Those black mothers, it is on them to be raising these children, not to be racist. Again, so I can see both sides of the issue. I think there's logic on both sides. So I'm interested in hearing what anyone has to say. We got about 40 minutes? Actually 35 minutes left in the broadcast, so if anybody wants to chime in, I'm interested from hearing on you which camp you are in, or can you see the logic on both sides, and we can further this discussion. Telephone number is 866-510-9025. Hit ** if you want to unmute yourself. So, Rob, did you want to chime in again?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
The piece I wanted to add, and I was actually, let me state this piece first. I just got news maybe about 10 minutes ago that I am expecting another black child to be born into this world. And that would make the number, I have 4 black children at this time. And the children are with black females. I was actually talking this issue over with my lady. Mm-hmm. And, okay, what if also, let's put this in the context of a chessboard. Okay, the most important piece on the board is the queen. Okay, so if, let's say that sexual activity is not the intended goal, what if we are targeting the white female not just for sexual activity, but also for resources, information, for whatever can be gathered from the white side of the chessboard, and all the pieces on the chessboard target the white female, not just the black male. But that's what I was talking over with the lady. But let me add this piece as well. Following Dr. Welsing's theory of white genetic annihilation, okay, if they fear genetic annihilation, why not engage in the activity that they fear?
I'm glad you brought up Dr. Welsing, because I was thinking about that during the break, and it just slipped my mind. But continue, Rob. But thank you for interjecting her views on genetic annihilation and their fears of genetic annihilation. Please continue, sir.
That was the last piece I had.
Okay, got you.
If that's the fear, then why not engage in the activity that they fear? And thank you for listening.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. And thank you for proposing the deep question, because it is a deep question that is worthy of discussion. And so, I was thinking about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's theories on racism, and particularly her views on white males fearing genetic annihilation, that they fear the black male penis. That is why they always castrate their black male victims and whatnot. And they're always trying to demasculate black males is because they view that black penis as a weapon that can inflict genetic annihilation upon the white population. Or again, remember, like she said, which is accurate, that the quote unquote white population is not even it's like a teaspoon in the ocean. Their total population numbers. Now, I heard some people say that, okay, if a black person produces a child with a white person, that you're diluting the black gene. Well, you can look at it as you're diluting or genetically annihilating the white gene. Again, we're talking in the context of racism, white supremacy. A lot of people may not be privy to these type of conversations. And so it seems like, to me, like Rob said, again, I'm not going to go out there and have sex with a white woman to produce a black baby. I'm just simply not going to do that. I'm not attracted to them. But at the same time, if somebody chooses to do so, I'm not going to label them the enemy. I'm not going to name call them. I'm not going to treat them like they some kind of leper and send them off to the leprosy colony. Because again, history shows that so-called children produced from white males having sex with black females during chattel slavery. Again, slavery was never abolished. But those children were mistreated just like all the other African children. They were mistreated, and many of them participated in the rebellions. Some of them, if they were not mistreated, and even though they weren't treated equal outside the plantation, but everybody knew this was Massa's son or Massa's daughter, and she's allowed to live in, good accommodations and always has the best food and dress the best and all of that, then you would expect that child to grow up supporting the plantation, supporting white supremacy or whatnot. So again, it all depends on who's doing the programming. And again, you can have two black parents and they can raise that child with views in a world perspective to where that child ends up supporting white supremacy as a tool of it. And I label that proxy racism. We got a call, looks like, from area code 973. You're unmuted. Go ahead. If you want to share your name, go ahead and with your name and your question or comment.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Jersey Girl calling from New Jersey. I don't know, it's funny how men are taking, maybe not in a different perspective, but I'm looking at the love part. If two people love each other and they have children, whether they be black or white or whatever, if they really truly love each other and have kids, then go for it. I don't think, it sounds like we're on the battlefield in this conversation.
Well, we are.
I know we are, but I'm just saying that looking at it in that perspective, it just doesn't sound pretty holistic to me. I mean, I'm pretty much a holistic type of person, and I believe in naturalness, whatever. I mean, if two people see each other, fall in love with each other, get married, have children, and go from there. Now, taking it from a battlefield perspective, if a man is going to do that, I do hope, or the woman who marries the white male, if she does that, she marries him and make sure that there's a marriage involved in that situation. It won't be that she's going to just go have that baby and
right. I agree. I agree.
That's not a good look at all.
Right.
Because I live in the capital of interracial relations here in Montclair, New Jersey, and I mean they call this the interracial capital of America.
I say that about Mount Holly, Jersey girl. I say that about Mount Holly. We the interracial children capital of Gaston County in North Carolina, because there's a lot of interracial children.
There's a lot of interracial children, and like I said, they're married. This is a very family-oriented town, and it works out pretty well, and I hope that they're doing it because of the love factor that is involved. And children who are of an interracial sect, like you said, if they're looking on a battlefield, it has to be a situation where they can learn about both cultures and not become, feeling that one is superior over the other. So that has to be a
white culture.
It has to be like we're both equal, and those parents should teach that child that way, because if they feel that I wish I was white and I'm not black, or you some hear children say, oh, I wish I had that hair, or why wasn't my hair like John's hair, or why wasn't my skin lighter than or darker or whatever. They start questioning that. They need some type of interjection with their parents to understand that it's all beautiful, whatever skin type you are, we're all the same, because you don't want them to feel like, why couldn't I just been all white instead of interracial or things of that nature? Then they start to have that hate for themselves of their blackness, and that's not a good look at all. So that's the way I view it. I just hope that whatever union it is, especially with a black woman with a white man, that she's married to him. Maybe it might be different for a black man or white woman, but for the black woman, she needs to be married to him. She needs to have, if she's going to have that child, there's going to be some type of, if he leaves or whatever, jump ship. I know it happens both ways, but I feel more for the black female, because she like in the system of white supremacy, how I just feel that's got to be a given for her, because of that she's black. The white woman has more assets, resources. They're always going to take care of her. It's just a given with respect to that. And sometimes even when they do have children, that interracial child, and like here I'm thinking in my case, I see a lot of the white women with their interracial children. I see more of the white women with their interracial children when the husband leaves. I really do. So that could be twofold, but for the black woman, she needs to be married to that white man. Thank you.
You're welcome. A couple of observations from some of the stuff you shared, but just for what I see here in my local town, and I'm not going to say, when you say there's a lot, when I say there's a lot of interracial children, what I mean is nobody's shocked when you find out somebody's interracial, has a white parent. But also we had to be careful we don't deal in generalities. Generalizing, like all these white women around here ain't rich and they ain't got no more resources than anybody else. They on EBT, they getting Section 8 housing. And so people have sex, whether they get married or not. And it's producing these children. All right. Now, most of the children produced in these relationships where I am tend to gravitate toward the black community, and they have black friends and hanging out, or they may have some white friends too, but it's more of a mixture of, you got white kids. It's like, a group of kids of all different classifications. But some of these white women, they will be described by some people, let's call them super predator, rich crackers, would call these poor white trash, and they having black babies and whatnot, and they following behind, chasing actually black men. And I've seen one white woman walking on the road with I would say 7 children. I believe these were her 7 children, and she lived in public housing. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if all them baby, but again, we're talking about it from a battlefield perspective. I don't believe in fighting a holistic war. Now, again, in terms of we want to raise these children and tell them, oh, you're equal to everybody else. And well, that would be lying to a child as long as the system of racism still exists. I'm not going to tell my grandsons, hey, you're equal to, what does that really mean? If anything, I'm going to tell them as individuals, you better than everybody else. You can achieve anything you want to achieve. But at the same time, we live in a racist system, and be prepared for obstacles to come up based off of your race. Instead of my child going out there blindly thinking we're all equal, we're all treated the same, and what have you. And then when they find out, oh, I keep getting turned down for these job applications, they're calling me in. But once they see my face, I'm not getting a job or whatnot, or I'm being stopped while driving while almost black or whatever you want to call it, So we had to be honest with these children. We had to be honest. Yes, sir. Go ahead, brother. Rob, let me finish up on this question that I had today. I keep trying to convince my daughter, my oldest daughter, to take her child, my oldest grandson, out of the local school. It's a good school. It's got a lot of resources. But guess what? They're teaching them white supremacy lies. They teaching them to pledge allegiance to the racist flag of America and sing the national anthem and all this and that. My daughter doesn't think that she can take on that responsibility. And even though I've offered to help, she's yet to pull our grandson out of school. So my grandson comes home from school today, and he says, Papa, I got a girlfriend. I never heard him talk about girls in terms of any kind of relationship. All right. So he then pulls out of his book bag this little, artwork that she made for him. She made me this picture and whatnot. So what's her name? Adrena. That's her name. Her name is Adrena, right? So in my mind, I'm saying, is this a white girl? Is this some little white girl? Or is this a black girl? Now, before I'm not going to ask him anything like that without first discussing it with his mother or discussing it with his grandmother, who also plays a big role in his life. And so, I had mentioned it to his great-grandmother, my mother. I was like, I wonder if this little girl is white or black. And she was like, it shouldn't matter. And I looked at her and I said, it do matter. We live here in this racist county. These Confederates, they just had a rally when they pulled that flag down in South Carolina and what have you. So it do matter. It do matter. We live in a system where he can get targeted for these little white girls and what have you. So again, we have to be real about the battlefield environment, and we have to be real with our children and prepare them for the real world. The real world is not one that's based on justice. Rob, did you want to comment? Go ahead, bro.
Definitely. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see, like, just in that story, man, that's what I'm talking about. Like, okay, your mom response was, it shouldn't matter, right? Okay, and I've noticed that the black females have a more loving, acceptable. Well, no, let's not use the word acceptable, but just a more loving approach when it comes to white people. Okay. And bringing it back to what Jersey Girl chimed in with, from a counter-racist perspective, I don't think that black females should get with white males. I think that just the white female should be targeted. And that's strictly from a counter-racist perspective. But the piece that I wanted to add is that in my observation of 2016, it seemed as if that was the year of the mulatto. President Obama, the brother Jesse, was it Owens or Jesse? I forget his last name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And then Colin Kaepernick, right? And all of these, that stands out as a little funny to me. That everybody that's kind of like speaking out about countering racism or, has been a mulatto.
Let's say, Rob, will you think it would be more accurate to say who the mainstream media has focused attention on? Because there are plenty of black people speaking out on racism every day, but we know how the system showcases certain people.
Yes, thanks for that correction. And that's what I was going to say next, is that they've been put out front. It seems that they've really been put out front in 2016. And so that has just provoked thought from my and something that I noticed with Dave, like when I listen to Dave's show, I hear Dave talk about the system, but I never really hear Dave say like white people or the word white or you understand what I'm like that.
Right.
And what I'm noticing, it seems that countering racism may be more effective if you are not labeled as a radical militant Negro. And it seems that, what's the saying? you can catch more bees with honey, or
yes,
you know what
more
I'm trying
flies with honey. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to chime in with.
Yeah. Now, this is what I would say about Dave. I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but what you just described is his program. He talks about the system. He offline talks about racism, and every once in a while he'll say something about racism. But overall, when he's talking about the system, I would call it in a codified manner. He's talking about it. You would have to know what he's talking about to know that he's talking about racism and white supremacy. But if you just was to come along and into the conversation or across the radio broadcast, you would never hear him use terms like white people, white supremacists, or black people. You know, he'll say stuff like our people. Well, we all know who you're talking about because you're on Black Talk Radio. So we don't need him to say black people to know what he's talking about.
You got Nutter Butter Cookies?
Let me put you on mute, Rob. We was getting some background noise. But that is actually how I heard Mr. Fuller suggest that if we're in an open forum where white people are participating, then let's say call it a town hall that's some local politician, and we go in there and we want to put racism, white supremacy on the table. Okay, but we know soon as, this is Mr. Fuller words, I'm paraphrasing, but he said soon as the R word is used, all hell breaks loose. No more constructive dialogue because you didn't use the R word. Accusing a white person of racism is just like calling a black person a nigger. That's how they take that, okay? That's how they take that. So he was like, can you put racism, and again, I'm paraphrasing him, but this is what I gathered from what he said. He said, can you put the issues, the symptoms that you want to address, because the issues are the symptoms of the problem. And he was like, can you talk about the symptoms of the problem, which is racism, white supremacy, without using the word racism? And by asking questions, is it right that, why is this person being treated differently than that person? Don't say it's cause of racism. You let them give you the answer. It should be obvious what it is. So you ask questions, you don't make accusations. But he said, when you in an open forum like that, that's what codification means. Codification does not mean just using certain terms to describe and everybody being on the same page with using the same terms. He tell people come up with their own terms, however you can best describe it and it makes sense to you. But he was talking about when we have these conversations with white people who are in the room, if you go to a forum like that, talk about racism without using the R word. Okay, let's say I live in Charlotte. I don't live in Charlotte, but let's say I live in Charlotte, and we got statistical data that says that black men are being disproportionately shot down. All right, so that means disproportionate to their numbers. But they also shot 5 white dudes too. Okay, so to be codified, if I want to raise the issue of black people being shot down in the streets in a public forum like that, why do I have to refer to the victim as black? Why can't I just acknowledge that and why do I have to leave out the white men that's being shot? Then we use their code words. We use their language in an open forum, and we say Americans are being shot down by police, and it is just not right, or whatever. This is anti-liberty. This is anti-freedom. We live in a police state. They're just killing too many Americans, and Americans shouldn't have to live like this. But when we racialize the issue, when we're talking among ourselves, and I know white people can listen right now, are listening right now, and can call in right now. But this program and this platform was not meant to be codified to fly under the radar, but for black people to come together and speak about these issues plainly. But what I'm saying is what Rob just described, if you listen to Tando radio show, he talking about racism, but you wouldn't know that because he being codified. That's what real codification is, when a person can talk about racism without saying the R word. And y'all could check the record. Mr. Neely Fuller did suggest that, and I think it's very logical. Let me see. I got about 10 more minutes left in the broadcast. So I'm not on anybody's side on that issue, interracial mixing, dating, marriage. I don't care who a person marries. I'm not going to mistreat them based on who they marry. If I'm a counter what they're doing, let me put it this way, because I ain't going to act like I'm some kind of saint or something up on here. If you cross me and you make yourself my enemy, I can make life hell for you. So I'm going to treat you based on your actions and your activity. I don't care what your skin color is, because, again, there are too many black people throughout history who have upheld racism, white supremacy, some knowingly and some unwittingly because of the programming. And so if we're talking about justice, like Mr. Fuller says, justice has no skin color. It ain't about taking sides based on a racial classification, which is racist. It's about taking sides based on justice. Is this justice or is this injustice? It's quite that simple. So can I say that a black person having interracial relations with a white person, that's upholding the system of injustice? I can't just come straight out and say that. I can say why I wouldn't want myself personally to engage in that, or my children to engage in that. But if my child, even though I told them, I don't want y'all dating white guys, I can't control you, but this is a system of racism. So, but if they did end up marrying a white guy, what I'm gonna do? Disown them? No, I'm going to be show enough hands-on father-in-law. Make sure that this suspected racist ain't mistreating my daughter. Okay, but my daughter's, I think my daughter, she did have a child with a person who has a white parent. So again, when we start playing the skin color game and even among black people saying that mulattoes is the downfall of all this and that, you just lying. You're lying. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. So look, if anybody has any closing remarks, I'm going to get ready to close it out. I apologize to those that was listening on Facebook Live, and there was a problem with the audio. I have resolved that. But again, this is a weekly program now, but I will be producing video podcasts, audio podcasts during the week, and uploading those to our different platforms that we distribute media on. But the live broadcast is every Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time up until 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. All right, Rob, did you have something else you wanted to share in closing, sir?
Yeah, for the record, man, I'm attracted to white females. I am in a attempted survival unit situation with the black female, and my thought-provoking question is an attempt to counter racism. And Scotty, I want to get with you offline. I want to talk to you about starting a program.
Okay.
And I specifically said that on the program so it can be public record, because I do have a tendency to procrastinate. So by me putting it on the public record is kind of me putting it in motion.
Okay.
So I'll end with that. And thank you.
Okay. Well, Rob, if you have email, please email me at info@blacktalkmediaproject.org, and we can set up that free 30-minute consultation, and we can talk to you about becoming a producer of independent black media. Whatever we can do to make that happen, that is why we exist as an organization. So I look forward to speaking to you, and so we can set that up. So shoot me that email. And thank you for your thought-provoking question. Jersey Girl, did you have any last comments you wanted to share? Anything, any observations since you last spoke?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate the guy on his new child. Welcome into the world. I know you'll be a good dad.
Yes, I missed that. Yeah, congratulations. And I know you're going to raise a child that's going to do their very best to counter racism and end slavery in this country. All right, that is my program. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and supporting Black Talk Radio Network, supporting this program. Again, we give these classes on new media technology every Saturday from 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern to 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Any questions you have on digital radio streaming, podcasting, setting up your own media platforms, any of that, I'm there to answer those questions. WordPress, all that kind of stuff. You know, chime in, you might hear somebody, or tune in, you might hear somebody ask a question that, you know, you would be like, hey, I had thought of that, but I forgot. Yeah, that's a good question. So we had a lot of that going on for an hour and a half today. So that is every Saturday. You can find information about it in our social media community, btrcommunity.com, which continues to grow. It is a safe digital space that was set up for Black people, by Black people. It is managed by Black Talk Media Project, and you can get a membership for as low as $24 a year, okay? And you can engage in social media and not be worried about being forced to use your real name, or you're going to get banned or put in BTR jail. We don't have jail at BTR. We don't put people into prison for expressing themselves and what have you. So you're welcome to join btrcommunity.com. It continues to grow. So shout out to those people. And again, if you support the creation of independent media, as I was talking about those classes, that's free and open to the public. Okay, they don't have to pay for that. How is that paid for? By the people making donations to our North Carolina nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. All right, so thank you again. I will be back on air next week, but look out for my podcast and video uploads at blacktalkradionetwork.com and the other network channels that we distribute our media. Recognize the fact that you do live behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. When I say it's a battlefield out there, I don't mean that metaphorically. You can't say that when you have 1,000+ Americans being shot down by slave catchers in the street every year. You just can't. No, that's a battlefield. That's warlike conditions. So when you recognize that fact, maybe you'll start to move in a warlike fashion. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking a more aggressive posture on the battlefield, but it means that when you need to conduct covert ops, you know how to move behind enemy lines without getting snatched up into slavery. Slavery was not ended. It was just transferred to the private prisons. Shout out to the abolitionists out there. Let's keep working towards ending slavery. Peace and blessings to all. Be safe.